guest is talk show radio host Dave Williams, who has been on the air in Los Angeles, Dallas, and Sacramento. We'll start off talking about his time as the #1 morning host in Sacramento at KFBK. Now, for a while, you were program director at KFBK, and that meant that you got to basically tell Rush Limbaugh what to do, right?
Yeah, Rush was on from 9 until noon after Bob and I got off in the morning. As a matter of fact, every morning shortly before 9, about 10 minutes till then, Rush would come into the studio and sit down, and we would talk on the air with him about what he was going to talk about during his shows. It was because it takes a tremendous ego to be successful in any kind of radio, but especially talk radio. I'm just saying what I think, and I believe it so strongly that I can go away at the end of 3 hours and not worry about what anybody thinks. That was Rush. It's not me. At one time, Rush and Bob Nathan and I were rafting on the American River, and we were talking about Rush was very much concerned about his contract negotiations with KFBK. He was very upset because he asked them for a raise to $24,000 a year, and he was denied. And he had an agreement. The radio station had a contract that said, well, if you can get an offer from a top 5 market, then we can let you out of this contract. But otherwise, no. Rush got a contract offer from WABC in New York.
Okay. The legendary WABC, right?
He left and became the superstar that everybody knows him. I think it's really important that people know whether you agreed with Rush's politics or his way of expressing or anything else. Number one, he was a fabulous radio personality. He was very funny, very creative, more so in Sacramento than he was nationally. And the other thing is that he was really a sweet guy. He was a very good person off the air. And I've never met anybody who didn't agree with that and say, well, yeah, I don't agree with him personally. I didn't agree with his politics, but you're right. He was a nice guy. How did we get off on Rush there?
Well, you happened to work with him for, I guess, a few years, or at least 1 year back in, actually it was 85 through about 88 you worked with him, right?
Yeah. I was program director there for a year. I decided to give that up because I couldn't manage the balance between being the morning personality and being the program director. It was too hard.
I want to ask you about Cliff in Dallas, KLIF, another legendary station that was top 40 in like the 60s and 70s and even early 80s, then became a talk station. And you wound up there in the 2000s or the 2010?
2012.
Yeah. So how about working there? I'm sure you sensed all that history working there, right?
Yes, you do sense the history, but here's the thing about KLIF. It was only the call letters. That was the only connection between the top 40 mega station that people remember, people in the business, I should say, remember as the great top 40 initiator of things. But
and on that point, Gordon McClendon was considered to some people the father of top 40 radio, right?
Personality top 40 radio.
He was a big name in top 40 as one of the pioneers of top 40.
Absolutely. When you look at a hall of fame of that type of radio, Gordon McClendon's at the top. And people here remember him. People here remember Cliff of those days. But the KLIF I worked at was on the same call letters that moved over to a different on-air frequency from 1190 to 570.
So you stayed there for about a decade, right, at KLIF?
Yeah, almost 12 years.
And were you doing the same kind of talk radio you were doing in Sacramento?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we were. My partner, my excellent partner, my good friend Amy Shadroff and I just decided that rather than read the news, we would talk the news. And we had the news copy that was written for us in front of us on the computer screen, and we would kind of talk our way through it, um, just so that it would sound more conversational than official, you know. And we would also talk about the big issues that were going on whenever they happened to be, if it was political or something happening around the world, or if it's something happening locally. We had segments where we weren't reading news; we were just talking and you know getting along together and sharing our thoughts on that day's topics. The top
Did it take a
top.
lot of show prep, or did you kind of wing it?
A little bit of both. Show prep is a term that people in radio use that can be confusing. I would show up at 4 o'clock in the morning or a little before, and we go on the air at 5. But show prep is life. It happens all the time.
Right.
We would get out of there at 10:30 in the morning and go home, and we were always listening. We were always watching TV news. We were reading stuff on our computers and our phones and making notes. We were in contact with each other and with our producer throughout the afternoon, going, "Hey, why don't we try to talk to this person about this?" So, I mean, it really was. It was. It was exciting when we were into it. It was a big drag when you're not into it, when you're just tired.
How about in Los Angeles? Let's wrap it up with LA. You were at KNX and some other talk stations. What was it like in LA?
A lot of pressure in LA.
Hmm.
There's so much great radio in LA, and you're playing for top dollar. I was making over $300,000 a year at one point, and there are people who are making less than that who are in charge of making sure that you're doing the best job possible. So you get pressure from them within the building. You get the overall sense of Los Angeles. It's like this is big, big time, and it was exciting. It was disappointing. I had some problems there in terms of my career. I mean, but I'm glad to be gone. I'm glad I had it, and I'm glad to be gone. Put it that way.
Well, you did it all in the sense that that's everyone's dream to either work in LA or New York or something like that, even Dallas, maybe. Like if you're in the South, you'd probably want to work in Dallas or Atlanta, right? Or maybe Miami. But those are major places.
You know where I always wanted to work? Always have wanted to work, and would even consider it now. Although, don't tell my wife I said that because she doesn't want to leave, and she doesn't want me going back to work. I tried for about 30 years to get into Seattle. I just
Great place. I
love
love
Seattle.
Seattle.
And I love the idea of having a nice little home with a backyard that is a forest.
Hmm.
And I like the weather. And I
Yeah, I
like
like
the
it
people
too
and so
there.
forth. So anyway, I tried for 30 years to get a Seattle job. I got pretty close a couple of times there, 12, 15 years ago. Got pretty close. But the problem with Seattle radio is that people who are working there do not leave
Yeah.
because they love it as much as I do. Other than that, yeah, LA was exciting. San Diego was inviting, but I never got there. San Francisco, I did enough work in San Francisco to whet my appetite. I wish I could have worked there longer.
Where did you work in San Francisco?
I worked for a little while at KSFO when it was still a music station, when it was still a contemporary, middle of the road type contemporary music station. I did a little fill in there. I applied again. KGO was
Number one.
It was number one, and it was number one on my list, more
Hmm.
so than Seattle. I wanted to
Yeah,
work at KGO.
right.
Other than that, I did spend 3 months in Chicago, which I just love the city of Chicago. Major markets, and I'll tell you something else, and maybe this is a place to leave you, Alex. The future of radio is in its past. Mark my words. You can put this down for today. This is what, January 23rd, 2024, and people in the business are going, "Wow, radio's dying." I'll tell you something. Radio's not dying. It is repositioning itself. It's going back to the past. It's going to become the local, um, the local. Uh,
Community leader.
yes, yeah. It's going to serve the local community the way it did so many years ago, because the big corporations can't manage it. And these are decent people who are very, very sharp, but they don't understand radio and they don't care about radio. The investors don't know about radio and they don't care about radio. They
Yeah.
only care about, making a profit. But the fact of the matter is, in order to run a successful radio station or group, you have to care about the people that you're serving, the people that you're talking to, and the people you're talking with. And that's about to return on all the various platforms. It's all coming together in some markets. So
Yeah,
that's
it's good to see that because the community spirit is what radio was known for, fueling it and, making communities stronger.
well, and also getting people on the air who are based in the community,
Yeah,
people that
reflective of
everybody
their community.
knows, you
Right,
know,
right.
instead of syndicated stars and so forth. I'm telling you, this is what's coming.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to that because I think radio needs like a kind of like a rebirth to become something for the 21st century.
Well, I think that's exactly what's happening. There's no reason to not embrace the wonderful technology that we have available to us.
Hmm.
Just stop trying to cut this out and cut that out.
Yeah,
You
right.
know?
Well, hopefully it'll improve the quality of radio overall. And one more thing, Dave. Last time we talked about Top 40, Croy, and Candy in Sacramento. Can you confirm, was that the first interview you ever did, like for, say, someone interviewing you about your radio career?
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
All right. That's
You know
awesome.
what's
I
the
want to celebrate
the
that.
funny thing about radio, at least in my experience, maybe it's just me, but as I grew over the years and I moved from market to market and so forth and got into bigger positions and whatnot, the less I heard from the people I worked with or other people in the industry in terms of, hey, you did a great job, or you know what, I want to talk to you. I think you could help. You could do better if you did. That kind of conversation just kind of goes away. And I haven't had any of it. In fact, even my bosses, I haven't had any real direction when I was on the air for the last 20 or 30 years. Suddenly, I'm retired and I'm doing some podcasts and I'm starting to hear from people. So that's cool.
Yeah, well, podcasting is the new broadcasting. I guess.
Absolutely, or at least part of it. It's going to
Yeah.
become a big part of it.
All right, Dave. Great talking with you.
Thank you. You too, Alex.
A century of radio.